What's up, everybody? Welcome to Viseland. We got a new episode coming for you. Mikey, what is going on this week? What's happening in your world?
Well, first off, we wanted to give an update on a player that we discussed last week. On Saturday, there was a game between Florida and Florida State. Florida got off to an early lead. Keante Johnson, a player that we had discussed last week, is a possible first-round pick in the 2021
SEC
draft.
preseason player of the,
Yeah,
the year.
really great player. He was off to a good start. He had just completed an alley-oop. Florida was up 11-3 just right before the 16-minute timeout. And coming out of that timeout, he collapsed on the floor. Everybody was very worried. They decided to still play the game. I honestly, I wouldn't really know what to do. But everybody, of course, their mind and the entire time was on Keante, especially with the way that he collapsed. They took him to the hospital. He was announced as being in critical condition, but stable. And we got some good news just a few hours ago that I will read to you. It says, from his parents, Keante is in stable condition today, breathing on his own and speaking with us and with his doctors here at UF Health. He even FaceTimed the team. We feel so much love and support from everyone, and we're beyond grateful for the care and attention that Keante has received throughout these past several days. We will continue to share updates about Keante's health and progress. We have seen how much people love and care for him. We hope people recognize that information that doesn't come from us or the athletic department may not be accurate. We are working closely with Keante's doctors and the UAA to provide information to everyone who cares so deeply about Keante and has been praying for him. And yeah, just thoughts, of course, go out to Keante Johnson, his family.
Yeah.
This was a very positive update, and yeah, just hoping the best for his health. But yeah, I think a lot of people in basketball were very shaken about what happened.
Yeah, just terrible.
Had COVID-19, and we have heard everything of people having possible heart issues. We don't exactly know what happened. The thing I have really come to realize is that a lot of us aren't doctors, and we especially don't know what's happening there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good to hear positive updates. We're just hoping that Keante can recover fully.
Yeah.
Just be healthy. Like that's the real key. Besides everything with basketball, as much as we would love to see him come back as a player, but we are just really hoping for his health at this point. And yeah, it was kind of it was something that really shook a lot of people last week when it happened, and over these past few days, just waiting for it.
Super, super scary. Because I remember, just reading the first tweet about it. Yeah, it's since Hank Gathers, I think that was probably the last.
Yeah, well, and Reggie Lewis during practice.
During practice, yeah, but during a game.
Yeah, during a game, yeah. And I had heard. I'd always thought that they had kept playing, but they actually canceled that game, and they canceled. I think it was the conference tournament. And they canceled it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's hard. I don't know how you go on, especially when the stakes right now are super low. It's these games are all kind of happening.
Well, especially during a pandemic. Yeah.
It's all crazy, but it's
as much as people want to play, it's I think you're kind of viewing health in a different light.
Yeah.
And so we can only hope that it gets viewed in that light going forward. And we care about people and their health as much as we care about, the product and the money behind it. And, this is a time where I think we need to support people and get behind them and just try and do what's right.
No, totally. I was in the same position with the bubble too. People that opted out, I was like,
oh yeah.
Just respect, just respecting people's, personal life decisions.
Absolutely.
Right now. But with that being said, there's a lot of those cancellations, and hopefully, college has been kind of a crazy schedule jumble, a lot of games getting canceled, postponed. I know for us, we're University of Oregon fans, the Ducks have had we're going to have a super long gap. They just booked University of San Francisco. Like these things are happening, but hopefully the NBA starting up their preseason, and hopefully they do not have that many hiccups along the way.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping so. It seems
The
like
NFL
while there's no bubble, it seems like they're taking precautions.
Yeah, like the NFL, obviously has kind of had a little bit of issue, postponing some games, kind of moving a few things around, but hopefully basketball, smaller team size, and I think they've already kind of had a proven track record of really kind of taking things pretty seriously. So hopefully, this season comes back strong because, super exciting. We are, if you're watching this or listening to us, right at the time of this recording, next week, season is starting. The real deal is going, and we're like 10 days away as of this recording from Christmas. Obviously, huge game. So, what we want to do today is really just kind of just give a good preview of how we're thinking the 2021 season is going to look.
Yeah.
And the conferences break down, who we think's going to be, like MVP, small rookie. So come and stick along for the ride. So let's start, compare both conferences. Start with the East, obviously, because they are not as exciting and highly contested as the West. So, Mikey, like, what is your kind of playoff seeding looking like for the Eastern Conference?
Yeah. So what Jason and I are going to do is we're going to we each came up with our own lists, and we're going to compare where we have certain playoff teams and just kind of go back and forth. And then we're also going to give like kind of either a most improved player candidate if the team has one, or somebody we feel is going to be a spark plug from that team. So yeah, as far as first seed, Jason, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. I feel like the East is going to be quite contested actually, and is pretty interesting, especially with a few new players kind of coming into the mix.
Tight, but it's not as like elite as the West.
Maybe.
Like, there's a lot of teams like in the back end for me that are kind of competing, but like at the front, there's not that many teams like I really would get super stoked about for like a finals.
I don't know, man. I think it really just kind of depends on how they all come together. There's a lot of unknown right now as far as the Eastern Conference, especially like with, a certain team that we're definitely going to be mentioning. But yeah, so I have Milwaukee number one. Who do you have number one?
I have Milwaukee as well. I think, again, like they were such a great regular season team last year. Giannis signing the Supermax.
Yeah, that's something that we should really talk about.
He's committing. He's locked in. He's not going to touch free agency. So that basically changes a lot of people's summer plans next year of like following free agency as closely. But yeah, I think again, like he's got a little bit to prove, probably a little chip, coming off of how they ended last year. I think like getting like Drew Holiday. I think like that's the player that could hopefully maybe make a bit of a difference for them. Kind of put them into, give them another guy again with Giannis, Middleton, Drew, Brook Lopez. Like, I think those are some pretty solid blocks.
Yeah, definitely. I think that trading for Drew Holiday should be a really interesting fit. I think a good fit. I think he's a great defender, is proven in the playoffs. They can play a lot of different lineups with him as either point guard or at the two, with a smaller guard. They signed DJ Augustine, who should be nice coming off the bench. Great shooter in Bryn Forbes. So yeah, I think just it seems like they're kind of not running it back from last season, but they have like a little bit of a different look, a little bit of a different bench, but still you have Giannis as kind of that centerpiece, and hopefully Chris Middleton does more of what he was doing in the regular season as opposed to the bubble in the playoffs. But yeah, and then of course, once they get to the playoffs, it will be the story of whether their depth can kind of provide, or whether Budenholzer decides to shorten his rotation and give Giannis the more minutes, hopefully, that he deserves. As we saw last year in the playoffs, like Giannis did certainly struggle at times, but was still his dominant self.
No, totally. Like not ideal Giannis is still better than, you take it over a lot. I think for him, like again, like the knock on him in that playoff run was really like not guarding the best players.
Mm-hmm.
even though he's, and he's the best defender. Like it just all was kind of like a weird game planning. So as far as like Mike Budenholzer goes, like who knows what that long-term future, but at least like Giannis is locked into the franchise. So at least I think that gives him that stability. That'll be nice. Like they're still not like it's Milwaukee. It's never going to be like the free agent destination, but like again, like maybe you can bring in some good complementary, like lower salaried people to kind of come play with him, like similar to like what LeBron does, where he brings in like those kind of minimum players that are veterans, but possess a certain skill.
I think ultimately, if they don't do it with this current roster, then maybe even try and trade up, like to get somebody kind of like an Anthony Davis, which you can't really find. But if they could maybe do something to trade a few guys and maybe look at changing the roster, maybe looking at playing Giannis at center and seeing what you can do with just shooters around him there.
Like
kind of like a different look where you have a good defender in Brook Lopez who made the all defensive team, but as we saw in the playoffs, wasn't necessarily at that same level. But yeah, I just think that they have a really solid team. They figured out the formula in the regular season. They traded for a guy who I think is an upgrade in Drew Holiday. And yeah, it's really nice. And then not having to worry about the Giannis extension. And like I was discussing with people today, talking about the extension for Giannis, there are like a few players in the league who you are ecstatic to sign at that extension, and Giannis is one of those players.
Oh, totally.
He's a guy that I feel you can build a championship team around. You need some exact pieces and everything like that, and Milwaukee hasn't necessarily put it all together these past couple of years. But Giannis is somebody who just turned 26 years old. I still think that they have a very bright future, and that it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
He's going to be in the MVP conversation every year of this contract. Like that's what you're getting. That's what you're getting with him. Like he's not moving up from this pinnacle for a while. Like he's kind of hitting his prime year. So yeah, like okay with the Supermax on that. But yeah, like I think for me, like X factor is I think like hopefully Drew Holiday gives them what they were kind of lacking a little bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm thinking Dante DiVincenzo, who played a really nice role for them last year. Like you're hoping he takes that next step. He was almost traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic, so we'll see how he kind of reacts to that. But he's going to be a player that they really need, and they'll really rely upon. Drew Holiday, you kind of know what you're getting already, but Dante DiVincenzo is a guy who I think they're hoping takes that next step and becomes that more reliable starting guard for them.
He's good potential since his days at Villanova.
Yeah.
But so who's your number 2 team in the East?
My number 2 team in the Eastern Conference is the Miami Heat.
I also have Miami. Yeah, I think for me, I think like riding the momentum of the bubble, I think they're gonna keep at this high level. I think they've seen what it looks like, to be in the finals, the standard. And I think like Jimmy wants to be in the finals. Like he wants to be at that. So I think they're gonna have like a very hungry kind of season. So yeah, I think it's gonna be the same, pretty much the same thing. Like Jimmy, hopefully Bam stays healthy during that time. Dragic is back. They're bringing in Avery Bradley. Like they have a lot of nice little pieces to go with what they had last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, losing Jay Crowder, I think, is kind of it hurts a little bit. But they did sign Maurice Harkless, who I think is going to get quite a few minutes. They basically do bring back a lot of the similar pieces that got them to the NBA Finals, though, and I think they're just going to have that chemistry as well. And like honestly, they're a destination I could see possibly getting James Harden. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think James Harden is getting traded, and I most likely see him going to the Eastern Conference. Just based on who has pieces and who could actually re-sign James Harden. Yeah. So yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Miami is a destination for James Harden. But even so, I just feel like they played really well together. They had the requisite shooting. You have Jimmy as kind of that initiator. You have Bam, who has become an all defensive level player and then also is able to initiate offense and does a lot on that end of the floor and should improve. And then, like you have some guys off of the bench who can really defend and give you some good minutes as well, and even spot start at times. So I think they really kind of figured it out, and it should be able to carry on into this season.
No, definitely. And again, like for me, like one player on that team for some most improved, I think it's hopefully Tyler Hero. I mean, he was great, at moments during the finals, for him just hopefully maybe turning a bit of a corner and getting a little bit more consistency.
Yeah, I think that as well. And
definitely future's bright for him.
Yeah, I think that as well. I just think it, like you said, in efficiency, just being more consistent and just kind of we'll see how he looks analytically this year compared to last year, where he still looked okay, but he was pretty much like a kind of scratch player. And then in the finals, we saw that, like what rookie is going to go in and kill it in the NBA finals. He wasn't necessarily like ready for that on a game-to-game basis. He had a few moments.
Scalable.
He had the snarl, but he still can reach that level of consistency. So he's a guy who I think is likely to start off of the bench, but he'll be one of the more valuable 6 men, and I'm sure he's going to spot start at times this year. And they signed these guys to like 1 year kind of team option deals just to run it back, and I think they're going to do a really good job with that. But I would say if they had a most improved player kind of candidate, it would be Tyler Hero.
Cool. Number 3, I have Boston Celtics.
Okay, I do not. I have the Brooklyn Nets. Why do you have Boston number 3?
Again, I still think, I still think, very strong team last year. Again, I think Jason Tatum is kind of rounding up into, an elite level player in the league. Like, I just think they're still a strong team, and Brooklyn is, of course, like just kind of a little bit unproven in that you don't know like the health of like Durant, KD. Obviously, like, having DeAndre Jordan again, that's, he's a little older. So again, I had Brooklyn as 4. So it was really between the two. So it's not like there was like a huge gap, but we'll start, on your, we can go over Brooklyn.
Yeah. So my reasoning for having Brooklyn over Boston, I think Boston lost a few valuable pieces. And you can say what you will about Gordon Hayward not being there during the conference finals run. And then the other thing is the health of Kemba Walker, which we're not sure about right now as well. Health of Kemba, you lose Gordon Hayward, you lose Brad Wanamaker. Just a few things with Boston. I still think Jason Tatum has turned the corner and is going to be like a giant factor in the reason that I still see them being like a, top 4 to 6 team in the Eastern Conference. But I think Brooklyn, I'm just banking on the fact that Kevin Durant is back. And to me, he's a top 10 level guy at the least. And at the most, he's a top 5 level guy. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He's so hard to guard on offense. He still brings it defensively. You can play him at center and run these like crazy 5-out lineups. I just think it's going to be really interesting having Kevin Durant. And then the other guy that I am very intrigued by is Kyrie Irving. And I think that Kyrie Irving, when he is playing, is a fantastic player. And we've seen him be that like great second guy to LeBron James. Kevin Durant is a player who you can say what you will about the way the team was constructed, but like had a finals team built within him. So it was like he and Stephen Curry were like, the guys for that team. And he just, I have a feeling that the Nets have enough requisite depth and some shooting to make it work. And I just thought with the way that they looked last year, without Kyrie for most of the year and then without Kevin Durant completely, they may not have done like tons in the offseason to upgrade, but I think just adding those two guys to the roster, hopefully healthy and for the whole year, is going to make them such a good team. And like I have a feeling like they could possibly compete for like the Eastern Conference.
Oh, totally. I think when it comes down to to the grind of the playoffs, like I think again that favors in Durant. For me, again, like one player that you hope kind of continues to improve is, on their end is Jared Allen. Because again, I think eventually you got to figure out if he's the center, kind of get rid of DeAndre, or if it's someone that they're going to just kind of leverage to acquire some other assets.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I would think Jared Allen would be the X factor. The thing that you also have to worry about with Jared Allen is signing an extension. So that's really why they could possibly move him. That Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are close with DeAndre Jordan, and that's how that all worked out. So we'll see what they end up doing there. Of course, you've heard about Brooklyn being a possible destination for James Harden, and Houston being like, well, we're not too interested in your like mid-level kind of guys. And in that package, we want either Kyrie or Kevin Durant. And like Kevin Durant is, I think, definitely out of the question. Kyrie, with the current way that Houston's made up, you don't necessarily love that fit. But we'll see what happens there. I think they're going to run with it for a while. And then the other thing that's really intriguing is, of course, Coach Steve Nash and having Mike D'Antoni, the style of play. I think they're going to be just an intensely exciting team and a really interesting experiment. And while 3 is, I feel, definitely pretty high for them, like I just think that they could be a really good team. And maybe that's just me being optimistic. I know how tough it is for somebody to come off of a ruptured Achilles, such as Kevin Durant is doing. But he's had quite a while. And to me, he's just like, he's one of the all-time best players. And I feel like there's going to be a way where he just kind of figures it out and is still like this top ranked, like, almost like first tier level guy.
No, totally. I think again, like he still will probably be at that level. But yeah, no, I just like between them and Boston, I kind of just went with the team that had kind of done it a little bit more the year before. Yeah. But again, like Brooklyn could be a super super exciting team. But as far as Boston goes, what is your thought as far as kind of like who's your kind of like X factor, someone who you think might kind of take a step up?
Yeah. So Boston, my 5th ranked team. My X factor for them will be, I'll say Grant Williams. I think Grant Williams, like if he really has kind of a renaissance, like, makes a little bit more of a contribution offensively. You saw him last year be kind of a fascinating small ball center, and I think they're going to need him. So I think he's going to get a lot of minutes. And they're going to have a lot of interesting lineups. The thing that Grant Williams brings you is just having the quick reception, making quick decisions. There's certainly some shooting potential there. So yeah, you like Grant Williams for his passing, his tough defense, hopefully the shooting, and I just think they don't seem to have they weren't necessarily like super deep last year, but they don't seem to have the same depth. And I think Grant Williams taking that next step is going to be very big for them.
Yeah, for me, I'm intrigued to see what Jeff Teague is gonna bring as well, especially with Kemba's health kind of up in the air. So I think that like yes, he statistically had his like low scoring year last year, but again, minutes were also down. So like interesting to see what he still has left in the tank. And then of course, personal note, obviously Peyton Pritchard, hoping he gets lots of burn. Had a good first preseason game, so let's hope that's carries forward. But you never know. But obviously, we support our pro Ducks. So after this Brooklyn and Boston, who do you have as your? We're at 4. And I know you had Boston.
Oh, I had Boston at 5. My 4th team is Philadelphia. Who do you have? Who would you have it? You had the Nets at 4, and where do you have Philly?
I have Philly actually at the 7 but I'll let you go, and then I'll explain my kind of.
My feeling is The 76ers, not only do they have a coaching change, and I thought Brett Brown was a good coach, but they make a coaching change. I like the way that the team fits together a lot more this year. And to me, the fit last year just made very little sense. You had a lot of guys playing out of their best position. And to me, you have, obviously Ben Simmons. I love Seth Curry there with Ben Simmons, as you saw him playing next to a big initiator and Luka Doncic, and that worked really well with him. Danny Green there also. I think Danny Green is going to thrive in Philadelphia.
I think that's shooters they didn't have before, for sure.
Yeah, those two guys. And then playing Tobias Harris at the 4, which I think is his best position. And then Joel Embiid just being that main center, not necessarily having to share being around the basket with Al Horford. I think that's going to work out really well. And then I like a few of their guys off of the bench too. I really like the drafting of Tyrese Maxey. I think he's going to be some immediate impact as a rookie, at least as a scorer off of the bench. And playing next to Ben Simmons, I think he could really thrive there also. Matisse Thybulle for his defense and hopefully just improved shooting. Shake Milton did some really good things for them last year as well. And then, you have Mike Scott and Dwight Howard kind of to round out the 10 guys. But yeah, I still have a lot of faith in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. To me, they're two top 20 guys in the league. And I think that the players that they have around them should make them a better team this year.
I think they definitely stepped up the shooting around that, because obviously Simmons is not going to give you that. For me, I don't know if there is a slow start. What is the future of this Ben Simmons and Joel situation, or do they try to make a trade for James Harden? But in that case, you're giving up a lot of things. So I just wasn't super high on them this year. It's not that I think they're terrible. I just kind of like teams a little bit better. I thought there was the other teams I ranked ahead of them I thought have a little bit more potential, just again based on some history and track record. But
yeah. So as far as history and track record, Philadelphia has been pretty good the past few years.
Pretty good, but to a point. And I think there's some kind of pain points on the.
I know. I think they've been good. Just in general. Obviously having Jimmy Butler that year before, and when they took the Raptors to 7 games, but yeah, you have Ben Simmons. I think is going to be just improving in general. I have a lot of faith in them at least being better as a team. And then also, as far as to me, they're the most logical destination for James Harden. And if they get James Harden, I think they have an even higher ceiling than this. And yeah, a package around Ben Simmons, I don't know how much more you're going to need, because the salaries, you'll probably just need a couple other guys. I don't think that's going to drain them of all of their depth. So yeah, I think if you have a package of Ben Simmons around for James Harden, it should at least be Philadelphia should at least still be in contention.
Okay. I'll take you on that. So who's your kind of again X factor kind of player you think for them this year?
I'm gonna go with Shake Milton. I think he played some good point guard minutes last year. Was shooting super well. I think he's coming off the bench for now, but I think he's going to be a valuable bench player. Has that in the Philly mold, being kind of long and able to handle the ball a little bit, able to pass. So yeah, he's the guy that I think is going to be a pretty big factor for them.
For me, I'm going to go with Danny Green, because again, I think he did not have the best finals, but and so a lot of people were hard on him, but that was not a full representation of what he does. He missed a game-winning 3, but he makes it. So I think again, he brings a certain defensive ability as well. He's not just just a 3-point shooter. So I think that gives him a good option of playing off those guys to be able to get his shot off a little bit more. So I think definitely Danny Green will be very happy that he's, obviously sad he's not with the Lakers, but happy that Philadelphia is the destination.
Yeah. Danny Green's going to take a ton of threes. And the thing with Danny Green that you mentioned is his ability to play defense means that even if he's not making shots, he still is somebody
on the floor. Yeah, that's the key.
Still making good decisions. So, yeah, and then just tons of experience. And obviously the last two finals have gone through Danny Green. So you have somebody with that level of experience as well. So, yeah, we've covered, I guess, the 5 teams so far, like with Boston. So, yeah, who's your number 5 team?
So 5, I went with Toronto.
You went with Toronto. See, I have Toronto 6. So that's good as well. Why do you have Toronto 5?
I'm still, I still think it's a good team. I think they obviously are going to, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, but again, I think they were a little bit not the players that they once were. So I
had a great year last year.
He did, but again, I think it's Siakam's team, and I think it's going to be, still a pretty powerful, with that backcourt of, Van Vliet, Lowry, Malachi Flynn. He possesses some of those same kind of capabilities to come in as a good, guard. I just think it's still a pretty potent team. I've always been like Norman Powell. So I think they still have a good core that can kind of keep it going, because again they've had great seasons, and I think it really like losing Gasol and Ibaka hurt, but I think like they didn't lose. If they lost Siakam, Lowry, Van Vliet, I think that would hurt a lot more.
Well, I think losing Fred would have been more painful than losing their big, especially with who they signed. Like I think Aaron Baines does a lot of what Marc Gasol was doing. I think it's going to be really tough to replace Ibaka, who did some great things last year and was kind of like the center that I feel more relied upon. And then, of course, brings like that rim protection element as well that they aren't necessarily going to have at the same level unless Chris Boucher, who I do think is going to play more minutes and take on more of a role there, steps up to that. I completely agree with Malachi Flynn. Like, I think actually getting like some valuable minutes here and has just looked really good. Just has a great mind for the game. Fantastic in pick and roll. Can really shoot the ball as well. So yeah, he was a great pick at number 29. They're still a team I really like. I may be too low on them, like honestly. But yeah, I think you saw also some of the issues with building the team around like Pascal Siakam, with the way that he played against Boston and had the struggles there. He had a really rough time around the basket, and then he was kind of trying to figure out like if he should be more of this stretch guy, and that wasn't necessarily working out either. So yeah, I think kind of needs to figure himself out. And I know that he made the All-NBA second team last year, but to me, it was just, I get it that they had a better record than Boston, but to me, Jason Tatum was like a clearly better player, and I think is somebody that I'm thinking is going to be higher up this year. Lowry seems to be ageless, but time is catching up with him.
That's what I think.
That backcourt's so good.
I think Malachi Flynn, again, like gives another complement of that backcourt that you can kind of mix and match.
But he's also a rookie, so yeah, you're not necessarily like getting the same level.
Oh, of course not. But again, you're getting someone that's competent, at least to kind of play some minutes.
Yeah, and then Norman Powell, of course, is another really important guy. Who would be your possible most improved player nominee or your X factor for the Raptors?
And again, slight bias, but maybe not. I think Chris Boucher. I just think, again, if he can play, how I believe he is capable, of playing and just making those improvements, getting a little bit stronger. Because again, he's a stretch, but he can also, shot block as well. But of course, like, for him, like obviously strength as a whole comes into factor. So he's not like a true center, but again, like hopefully he can just provide some good like energy minutes and really just, give them a little bit of outside shooting in the stretch. And then also, hopefully get a couple cool, good shot blocks.
Yeah. I think like some people might think like Terrence Davis, who put in some great contributions last year as a rookie. He's a guy I'm just leaving out of the picture in general because I kind of want to figure out everything that happened there in the offseason with him. But I agree with you with Chris Boucher. If you look at his per minute numbers last year and some of the times he came in and just was that really great boost of energy, the inside-outside threat, the athleticism. I know he weighs nothing, but he's still somebody.
He's always gotten
the rotation guy.
Yeah, he's always gotten it done, and I think today's NBA allows for that too. Again, because it's about stretching the floor a little bit more than at his size 20 years ago, he'd have to get into the post. Where it's now it's no, he can kind of play a little freer.
Yeah.
So who's your next team out in the East?
So after I have the Raptors at 6. My next team is Indiana. And where do you have Indiana?
I had Indiana at 6.
So I have Indiana at 7. I think Indiana is just a really solid team. And but yeah, I just like a few teams better. They're solid, but they're not spectacular. They used to have that all-star level guy with Victor Oladipo, who just seemed to kind of be a step below where he was last year, coming back from injury. We'll see what happens. We heard about Victor Oladipo and his possibly already thinking about his next destination as well. So you're wondering about chemistry. But yeah, they're a solid team. They've got proven starters with Malcolm Brogdon, Victor Oladipo,
and Sabonis too, because he got hurt at the beginning of the bubble too. So
Domas and Miles Turner, and then you've got some good guys coming off your bench. You've got Jeremy Lamb. I like Goga Bitadze. I think that he's a really interesting player too, and should have a nice second year. The brothers Holiday and Dougie McBuckets, who still can really shoot the ball. So yeah, they were that solid team. They were one of the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference last year before getting swept by the Miami Heat, who were the team of destiny in the Eastern Conference. So yeah, I still think they're going to be solid, but I think probably maybe a few more struggles this year, just with the other Eastern Conference teams kind of taking a step up as well. Yeah,
totally. And for me, I like what I saw out of TJ Warren, especially at the end of the bubble. So hopefully, obviously he's not going to be like a 30-point a game guy, but again, hopefully he steps up and becomes a real reliable player for them, especially because with Victor Oladipo, you don't know if he's going to try to get a trade or what's going to happen there, because again, he's kind of had a little bit of one foot out the door.
Yeah. Who's your X Factor guy?
That's what I went with.
You went with TJ Warren.
I went with TJ Warren because again, he's gonna shoulder some, definitely if Victor Oladipo is not gonna be he's gonna shoulder a little bit more offensive load for sure.
Yeah.
But as far as guys that
I just don't know how much he's going to do than last year. I'll go with Goga. I think they need that third big guy, and he's just, to me, a super intriguing offensive player, brings a little bit of a defensive ability as well. Yeah, he's somebody that I just can really see upping his production in his second year.
Nice. And just another player that I like, but obviously I doubt he's going to get a lot of burn. I like Jalen LeCue. Always just been intrigued by him. Mm-hmm. But, again, he's probably going to be a G League kind of guy for another year, but still a fan. I think he's got some good burst. And then, so who is your final playoff team then in the East?
My final playoff team in what would normally be the playoffs would be the Atlanta Hawks. I have Atlanta as my 8th seed. Who do you have?
I had Washington because I think they're an interesting team, but I think Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, I think Denny Avdia was shooting well. It's hard to see Russell Westbrook also not going to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which he's done before, but
yeah. I could see it was, to me, quite a decision between the two. The thing is, they could still go to the playoffs. Like that's the amazing thing with this year is having that play-in tournament from 7 to 10, they could still make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But just in a typical year, like, before this whole play-in game thing, then they would be, just out at the – I have Washington as the 9th seed. Atlanta, I think, did enough with the signing of Bogdanovic and with the signing of Gallinari, and I think the development of their players, you're finally going to get Clint Capella as well. I think they have enough to get that 8th seed in the playoffs. And I think Trae Young is just really going to kind of, I think, be more efficient this year. Probably not have to do as much, but still put up the huge numbers that they likely need from him, and maybe lead the league in assists. But he has a little more help this year. And I'm really interested to see what they do with John Collins. They have quite a few playable guys. You have the whole stock of wings with DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, Danilo as kind of that 3-4 combo. You get some defensive guards off the bench as well with Rajon Rondo and Chris Dunn. And then, once he's healthy, I think there are some foot issues. Onyeka Okongwu is a really nice defensive center prospect and a guy that I could see playing minutes right away. You just kind of wonder what happens with John Collins and Clint Capella, who I think ultimately are better as 5s just on their own. John Collins can play 4. Onyeka is a guy who I don't think you want playing 4. You ultimately would like him to play center, and Clint, to me, is just like a pure center. So, it'll be interesting to see how it all fits, but I just think they have so much offensive firepower, and they're going to take that next step and I think be a little bit better than Washington right now, even with Russell Westbrook being there. And obviously, I think having a likely huge year in the Eastern Conference with Bradley Beal.
Yeah. And who's your player on Atlanta that you're kind of
my X Factor guy for Atlanta, I think I'll go with Cameron Reddish, who isn't going to start right away, but seemed to get better every month as the season progressed. And if he's shooting the ball at a high level, he can play defense, he can make some plays. Just a guy you can use in a lot of different positions as well, I would say 2 through 4, working well next to Trae Young. To me, he's the more intriguing prospect between he and DeAndre Hunter, who I think Atlanta is initially going to start. I think they're bringing Danilo off of the bench, which is interesting to me. But I think Cam Reddish is the guy who would be my X Factor guy for them.
For me, I think some of the can be an X Factor type is also Rajon Rondo. I think again, he's just a proven veteran from finals appearances, a little bit more defense as well. So I think, maybe that could also be a good compliment to Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so who is your 9th team?
My 9th is Washington.
Washington. Okay.
And you had Washington as 8?
Yeah.
So Wizards, I think they're good enough to kind of stay where they were last year. I just think everybody else in the East, got a little better also. You kind of wonder how the Westbrook-Beal pairing is going to work. And while they were the 9th seed last year, they were kind of a distant 9th seed.
Well, they were invited to the bubble on a technicality. If they won every game and someone else lost every game, that was the only way they could do it. So they got a free trip to Disney World, which is nice. I'd love to go to Disney World for work for free. But I always like Rolo. So I like the signing of Robin Lopez. I think Danny Avdija is again going to give them another hopefully shooter.
So it's still yet to be determined.
I think he obviously had a good first game, but again another offensive player. But it's going to be that dynamic again at the end of Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. If that can kind of click at at least a decent level, I think Bradley Beal's at least less controlling of the ball than Harden. But again, Russell Westbrook sometimes plays at 310 miles an hour, and it's just not in control.
Yeah.
Of what's going on around him. So definitely poised for some inconsistency, but I think, they were close last year. I think they could maybe, stay in that range. But again,
Yeah,
I like realistically, it's like I had them at 8, but they could easily be like 8 to like 11.
yeah. I think they'll probably be in for a playoff, like a playing game, and like having them 9 still means that they have a chance of making the playoffs. I just they are solid, unspectacular. It will be nice because Bradley Beal obviously has had his most successful years playing next to a player of similar talent in John Wall. Getting a guy like Russell Westbrook who has that track record of making the playoffs year in, year out. Very good. And they didn't make like a huge splash in free agency. Denny was a nice draft pick at number 9, but I just don't really think like moves the needle as far as winning or losing basketball games at this point. And we'll see how Rui Hachimura, who is somebody that I think they're kind of hoping takes a next step as well, ends up playing. But yeah, like I feel like they're in at least the playoff chase. But yeah, they're just not a team that I would have being better than Atlanta.
And then who's your kind of X factor guy on the Wizards?
Let's just go with the guy who we both want to go with. Troy Brown Jr.
Sure. I hope he, has continued improvement. He did, he was double-digit scorer last year. I think he's one of those. Yeah, I think he's one of those players that's, he can be very consistent at like his level, like the level that he's going to be at. But I think he fills out a lot of categories on a stat sheet. So I think, solid role player.
Yeah.
And then who is your 10th? Who's your last? What's your play-in game? Who's that last team hanging on for dear life?
My number 10 team is Orlando, who has made the playoffs the last couple of years as an 8 seed. One of the last few seeds.
Yeah, they've been last in. Yeah.
It seems like the one thing that's kind of like too bad with them is Mo Bamba still hasn't been cleared for contact yet. He had COVID-19 back in June, and I guess is still dealing with symptoms from that. So that's terrible. But otherwise, they still have a lot of – and the other horrible thing with them was Jonathan Isaac rupturing his Achilles. I believe it was a ruptured Achilles, right?
Yeah, it was pretty – I know it was Achilles something. But, yeah, either way, it's like it's a season. Like, he's not going to play this season most likely.
I think he's out.
In the playoffs.
I think they're – and as much as they – I think missed those guys like a lot of last season also. Chumo Kiki is finally able to play this year, so that'll be nice for them. They signed Dwayne Bacon. They still have pretty much like, the 4 starters that they ran out last year with Markov Folds, Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, and Nick Vucevic. You have Terrence Ross off the bench. I like the drafting of Cole Anthony. I think he's going to play some real minutes and add a level of shooting there. James Ennis III also is a player that I think is going to get quite a bit of run and has been on some, at least, kind of relied upon by some good teams. So, I think they're solid, unspectacular, and they could be in that playing game range. But I just don't think they're like a lock for the playoffs as they've been the past couple of years.
No, totally agree. And for me, like I would say my X factor is Cole Anthony. Like I do think if he can, possess, that scoring ability, and again, like make up for what Markelle Fultz lacks, which is like shooting.
Yeah.
So, I think that could be a good change of pace, or even, putting them in that backcourt together in spurts to get a little bit of, get a little bit more explosion.
Mine's Markelle Fultz. I think Markelle Fultz, like, this is the year where he kind of, you would hope, steps up a little bit and shows just a little bit more of that ability. You're hoping that there's at least some semblance of a pull-up game or some semblance of shooting. But yeah, he's always been such a talented finisher, able to get to the paint, able to get to the free throw line, make plays for others. So yeah, he's a guy that I think if they're going to be better than this, they're going to rely on him quite a bit. So that would be my guy there. Number 11, I have the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I could agree. I mean, I think again, you look at their starting lineup, like you listed out to yourself, it's solid player. Like it's a solid.
It's good, but is it better than any of the other starting?
Totally, but that's I know that like at the end of the day, that's where the line gets drawn. But yeah, like hopefully,
Yeah, it's good. Billy Donovan is their new coach. They didn't make like any huge acquisitions. Patrick Williams, of course, was the 4th pick in the draft and has looked really good in preseason and seems very comfortable as a pull-up shooter. Kind of, being that big combo forward, a guy who can spell Otto Porter or Lauri Markkanen. So yeah, I think they're still like a good team. You're hoping that Markkanen and Wendell Carter take that next step. Kobe White had a really nice end to his season as well. And then Zach LaVine is like kind of that borderline all-star who hope eventually plays some defense to possibly get to that level. Yeah. So they're like a good team, but yeah, I would say still a step away from being that like playoff lock.
Yeah, and for me, I'm excited. Like for me, like I want hopefully Kobe White to again like take on a little bit more scoring ability because I think again they're probably not going to be in that playoff picture, so it's going to be a little bit more of a free for all this year. So I I really wanted to see him like hopefully take some good advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree. Kobe White would be that X factor guy for me also.
Perfect. So then
Number 12, I have the Charlotte Hornets. I think they have some good young pieces. PJ Washington, very promising as a rookie. Signing Gordon Hayward gives them at least I think one of the best players they've had probably in franchise history. If you're not counting the like old Charlotte Hornets, since they've been like the Bobcats of the Hornets, like he's I think one of the better players that they've ever had, even with the contract being something that you wouldn't necessarily want to give to a person who's likely going to be on the decline during his last couple of years there. But yeah, they have a nice backcourt. LaMelo Ball was my number 1 player in the NBA draft, and I think gives
gonna get a lot of again like chance to play.
Yeah,
and really like initiate.
And then my X factor guy for them is Miles Bridges, who I don't think is going to start for them, but I think they're going to just need him to do big things off the bench, play either forward spot. And I think PJ Washington is the better player between the two that they've drafted. But yeah, Miles Bridges is just somebody that they're also going to need quite a bit from. And he would be the guy who I think could get them like above like a Chicago or Orlando. Yeah,
so I went with PJ Washington because I think again like he's a very talented player and the front court is pretty open there for someone to establish. To take that next step to establish making impact. But again, I think like playoffs are probably not in sight, so it's going to be hopefully a good chance for some of these guys like LaMelo to really like get out there and get some good experience losing some games, but then like hopefully building some chemistry in a couple of years to make something happen.
13, New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau is or Thibs or whatever people like to call him. He is at the helm now. It's still like an island of misfit pieces as far as the roster goes, but I think they could make some moves. They could do a few things with it. You're hoping that Mitchell Robinson eventually gets that starting spot. You're hoping they maybe move like a Julius Randle, who I think is on the last year of his deal. So that's a possible trade chip for someone else. But yeah, I think Obi Toppin is likely going to have a quite a bit of playing time, big rookie year. Nerlens Noel seems to be somebody that Tibbs loves, and he's likely going to start. My X Factor guy has to be RJ Barrett, though. And he is somebody that I think is going to take a huge step forward, somebody who's been putting in a lot of work. And that was always going to be something that RJ Barrett brought to a team. You're just hoping that, he maybe has a little bit more spacing this year. They signed Alec Burks, who isn't necessarily like a knockdown shooter, but yeah, you're hoping that RJ Barrett maybe just has a little bit more room to work and has just kind of improved. The ball's going to be in his hands quite a bit, and I think he wants to really prove himself after not making an all-rookie team last year. And I think he's at least going to be like a much more solid player this coming season.
And he's got his godfather coaching in the other borough, so probably going to want to show, definitely show out against playing Brooklyn. To me, I think it'd be interesting for me. I'm intrigued to see like Nerlens Noel on kind of a team like this, like getting some playing time, and maybe if he can do a little bit of what people potentially thought he could. He's never going to get to that high level, but again, like I think there's going to be a lot of chance for him to at least play, make an impression, maybe earn another contract. But I'm also most intrigued about RJ because again, the expectation, especially from the Canada basketball community, which obviously again has its own biases, but again like was very high. So you'd love to be able to see him hopefully establish himself as a go-to.
Mm-hmm. Moving along, we have the Detroit Pistons at 14. I still think having Blake Griffin, the free agency there, I thought was a complete mess. Just didn't really love any of their signings. But I thought Josh Jackson was worth a flyer. Jeremy Grant, I think was a little much considering the fact that he's next to Blake Griffin and not necessarily like in his best place possible. And they're breaking in a rookie point guard in Killian Hayes, who I think is very talented and was a great pick at number 7, but is going to take some time. Still have Derrick Rose. We'll see how it works out, but yeah, I just feel like they may be like a little bit above being last place. So I have them at 14. My X factor for them is Seiko Dubunya, who looked really good at times last year, showed some great flashes. He was a rookie from France, one of the younger players in the NBA draft, has this fantastic body, some ability. Like when he launches three-pointers, he has like this enormous arc also on his shot. But yeah, just strong player, somebody that I think is going to somebody that they really have to play this year and are hoping for a little bit more out of him as a second-year player.
I think the team's kind of again going to be very struggling, but yeah, I'm just intrigued. I know they overreached a little bit salary-wise, but yeah, I'm intrigued to Jeremy Grant. I think he had a good, strong playoff for Denver, so it'd be interesting to see what he can bring to Detroit. But there's a lot of log jams and kind of issues I see on this team. So I'm guessing they're going to be back in that lottery picture. That's pretty much a guarantee.
I think they're guaranteed to be back in the lottery picture. But let's move on.
Rounding out the return lottery teams. Of course, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I liked Isaac Okoro, and he's looked really good in his first couple of preseason games. Also, you don't really know how it works. Like Kevin Love and Andre Drummond were all-stars but a few years ago, but it's not. You're not loving how that works right now. You have like a Larry Nance Jr. behind them too, so it's like a decent front court, but yeah, the back court still very unproven. Kevin Porter Jr. would be my X factor. He was a guy who I thought showed some great flashes last year, has always had this like uncanny ability to create his own shot, and just showed that he had the handle and athleticism to attack the basket as well, that he didn't necessarily show at USC. But yeah, he's a legit 3-level scoring threat, and somebody that I think they're going to need a lot of playing time out of in order to reach their full potential. And I think he's going to make either Colin Sexton or Darius Garland eventually expendable. But yeah, I still feel like they have some pieces that don't necessarily want to be there. Kevin Love, I think, has another year on his contract after this, but Andre Drummond signed a player option, and I think is ready to go after this one. So yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there. They kind of didn't have to trade a ton to acquire Andre Drummond. So yeah, we'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. But I just feel like they're going to likely be at the bottom of the NBA standings.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to really take them to another level up, to really get out that. Like, I'd love to see, Kevin Love take that and be, but he's not really a franchise guy anymore. Like, he kind of wasn't.
He never was.
Well, Minnesota kind of, I mean, maybe by default a little bit, but yeah, like.
Yeah, but if you're calling guys that don't make the playoffs ever franchise guys, then that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
That is, I will give you that. Yeah, I think they have a couple young core guards that I could, see, hopefully having good years for themselves, like Darius Garland, Kevin Porter, Colin Sexton, because again, they're going to get a lot of chances. Like, games are going to be unattainable. People are going to be getting in. They're going to be able to kind of take some risks. So, hoping, they can, at least have fun. But yeah, it's going to be another return ticket to the lottery. But that's the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. So let's go a little bit more quickly through the Western Conference. Who do we have at number one?
Lakers.
Well, let's go with the Lakers. Okay. Glad we agree on that one. They're running it back, and they added pieces. So, winner of the NBA championship last year. They add the Sixth Man of the Year and the player that finished runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year, who's likely going to start for them this year, in Dennis Schroeder. Sixth Man of the Year last year was Montrezl Harrell, who also won a thing that I didn't even know existed called the Hustle Award.
Oh, and they gave that at the Jewish Community Center when we were kids. They had the Hustle. Yeah. I didn't know it transferred to the NBA, so technically
it did. Yeah, sponsored by the Bathurst Jewish Community Center, actually.
Yeah. So, good on them.
Yeah, so they add Marc Gasol, Wes Matthews, who of course have seen better days, but are still players that were playing.
Chippy guys.
Two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And the guy who let's just straight up say he's an X Factor possible guy. The second youngest player ever to win an NBA championship, I believe now. Taylon Horton Tucker has looked really good in the preseason. Had some good moments against Houston too when he got his chance in the playoffs. He is somebody with one of the longest height to wingspan differentials, and he is just a talented, creative scorer, built like a tank. I think he's going to get some possible rotation minutes or at least some bench minutes for the Lakers this year.
Well, I definitely think the Lakers are also going to be an interesting team as far as playing time for some of these guys during the regular season, because again, I don't think LeBron is going to go every game just because he's off 2 months.
Anthony Davis either.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a good chance for them. Yeah, I'd like to see the continued development of Alex Caruso is kind of like an energy guy off the bench as well. But I think that's gonna probably go a little bit to the wayside with some of the new bringing in Schroeder, bringing some other other guards. But he's always kind of been an exciting guy in his little few minutes on the Lakers.
Yeah. So who do you have in number two?
I have Denver.
I have Clippers. We'll start with Clippers, I guess. I just feel like while Denver did beat the LA Clippers last year in the playoffs, we saw that happen. Amazing comeback from 3-1 deficit. I feel like the Clippers just will have another year of synergy. I like the Serge Ibaka pickup. I thought Serge Ibaka played some fantastic minutes last year. I think he's going to start at center for the Clippers, and he's a really good shooter, brings that rim protection, is a better level of defender than at least Montrezl Harrell was, and they wanted Ivica Zubac to play a few more minutes last year in the playoffs over Harrell. So you kind of wonder how that's going to fit even on the Lakers. I still feel like the Clippers are right in the thick of things, and I have them ahead of Denver. at least as a regular season team. But I think the Clippers are my favorite to be the second best team.
I guess for me, like regular season, I just think again, like the Lakers will still like LeBron always gets his way to the top, but I think like Kawhi sits out enough games like that. I think, just that was my only regular season reason between them and Denver.
Yeah,
but
I think they have a little more depth. Like that's the other thing. Like I think getting Kennard was a nice little pickup, and they have Nick Batum, so we'll see if he has anything left in the tank. They still are even without Kawhi Leonard, like they're still like I think like a mid playoff team. Marcus Morris Sr. too, so yeah, they still have like that versatility that they provided last year.
Yeah, for me, I'd say like my X factor is like I kind of do want to see what Luke Kennard can hopefully provide a little bit shooting maybe in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, I think you're going to see a very similar Clippers team with those kind of new kick. But I think again, like Lou off the bench, you still got kind of Patrick Beverley just being up in everyone's face on defense. So, again, I think Los Angeles Conference Finals is definitely in the picture possibly. But I did put Denver too because I just liked what they did during the playoffs. I thought that was a great run. And you look at Jokic, and he's just so, at times can be so dominant. Mm-hmm. As really like the only like the best center in the league because there's really not that many like true centers in the league. So I just think
I still kind of disagree there. So Anthony Davis, I think, is ultimately a center. Karl Anthony Towns is a true center, and Joel Embiid is a true center. To me, those are at least a few guys who are in competition. But I do agree that Jokic is the best of those guys, maybe outside of Anthony Davis.
Yeah, but I think Davis doesn't quite identify himself as a five.
I do.
Again, it's just
the All NBA team identified him as a five.
Well, that's whatever. But yeah, so again, like I really like what Denver's bringing to the table. Obviously Jamal Murray's playoff performance, epic. Obviously that's not scalable. He's not going to be putting up like 50 points a game. But again, I'm hoping he's kind of again turn this corner to like an all-star level player. Yeah. Michael Porter Jr. coming in, getting second year. That's someone they got so much value for just based on his injury, slipping in the draft, and obviously personally just always intrigued at Bol because this is his technical rookie of the year. He can be in the rookie of the year race there. But again, I think in spot minutes like that could be very interesting. But again, probably he'll be a little bit more off the bench.
To me, he could be no worse than Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, well that's why. And again, like similar to what we said with Chris Boucher, it's like inside shot block and three.
Yeah,
like you can
whole like level of talent was even surpasses that. And
no, totally. Well, that's why he's
huge
ball skilled. It's almost like almost would be a good front court compliment to Jokic. If you have two very tall guys that have that kind of skill level. But obviously, like what his endurance is. But yeah, to me, obviously the X factor is going to be like Michael Porter Jr. And if he really, turns a corner, because again, he's going to get a lot more playing time and be called on a lot more this year.
For sure, I think he's going to be a consistent starter for them this year. That's what they'll expect from him. Either playing next to like a Millsap, JaMychal Green, or playing at 4 with like maybe Will Barton in there, next to Nikola Jokic. Porter shot exceptionally well last year. Great finisher around the basket. He's one of my favorites for most improved player, just preseason wise. And when we get into awards, I think you'll hear his name from me at the very least. So you had the Clippers 3?
Yes.
All right.
Moving on to 4, I had
4.
Dallas.
You have Dallas.
Yeah.
You have no heart, sir. Because I have the Portland Trailblazers. I can't believe I have the Blazers higher than you. I'm taking the Blazers 4. I like the balance of the roster. I'm hoping for health. I think they have a little depth at forward. You've got Dame and CJ playing alongside 2 competent forwards who hopefully can help them on both ends of the floor and do a little bit more than what was provided last year. You've got Bench Mello, who may be as good as Hoodie Mello. That's something yet to be determined, but it's possible. At least was in the first game against Sacramento, maybe not the second game in the preseason. You got Ennis back. Not necessarily a huge deal, but the fans love him.
He's a good guy. But like, trust me, you don't have to tell me to like big up the Blazers. I did rank them lower because I've been a Blazers fan for way too long in my life to set my sights super high. But yeah, of course, like I love the way Gary Trent Jr. was coming on. You know, Robert Covington, like those were all good moves.
Yeah.
You know,
Derek Jones Jr.
Yeah,
super athletic, can play either forward spot. So,
and I think those were definite things that were really missing from the Blazers last year in the playoffs. Were those kind of exactly.
Bring Rodney Hood back.
Rodney Hood's another competent scoring player. If Melo continues to embrace that role off the bench, that would be super epic. And Zach Collins hopefully can come back. Definitely potential on the Blazers as always. But yeah, it's for me. It always gets the Blazers. So. I did rank them a little bit lower, but again, I think you're going to get another explosive year from Damian Lillard. I think he's definitely going to be a player that does not even want to be questioned for also like he wants to definitely be on the All-Star team, not get a snub over some of the other guards that are so heavy in the Western Conference.
He was last year though.
No, he was, but again, he was, and he wants to keep at that. Like he does not want to be stopped. So I think
he wants to be an All-NBA first team. Like that's
regardless of outcome.
Yeah.
I think Dame is going to be super, super hungry. So,
yeah. X Factor. I'm going GTJ, Gary Trent Jr. He was excellent during the bubble. He was a starter in the playoffs as well. Shooting, defense, hoping a little bit more like scoring ability from other areas also, but he's somebody that I think is still going to be dependent upon quite a bit. Maybe not being a starter like he was during the end of last season, but he's been a solid rotation guy. And if like CJ McCollum goes down, I think you're very confident putting Gary Trent Jr. in.
Yeah, I'm going to agree 100% because again, I think he was really showing up like as a consistent player. And it was kind of funny because like going into last season, I mean, it was Simons was the player that you're like, oh, this guy's going to be the future, rotation guy, or maybe, Dame gets hurt, he'd start, and now it's like Simon's kind of unfortunately probably at the hitting the end of the road. Yeah, probably hitting the end of the road in Portland. Probably there's going to be a split soon there, and whereas after the playoffs, Gary Trent Jr. was like very, very impressive as someone that could just be a consistent player, and especially I think on this team right now with the fact that there is a little bit more depth. Yeah, of just talent. So I think that's going to be super helpful. I think Rodney Hood will hopefully, again, have like a good impact on the team as well, because I think that was something that was missed last year, and happy he opted out of his player option to come back. That was good, because at first I was like, you opt out of your player option, you're kind of dead to me, but then came back. Very cool.
Want more money.
Yeah, of course. That's how it all works out. Obviously, like Anthony Davis did the same thing, but
I mean, yeah, very different circumstances.
Oh,
but, yeah,
100%. But people like money. So you have the Blazers 4. So who is your 5?
My 5 is the team that you have 4, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. I think you're completely justified to have the Mavericks at 4. I'm worried about Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know when he comes back. So that, to me, that's a huge factor of the Blazers possibly being a better regular season team than them. And Kristaps, I think, is somebody who was huge for them last year. They did win a game against the Clippers without him, but yeah, like he was so big in the bubble and was really coming into his own and looking like that great second complement to the star that is Luka Doncic, who made the All-NBA first team, which was a little surprising to me. Like I felt like Damian Lillard might have made it over him.
But I think Luka's also taken this leap where he's locked into that like top 3-4 player, like MVP for the next, like, I want to say decade, but at least like 5 years just to be conservative. Like
I'm with you on even if you said decade. Like,
yeah, it's like he's going to be in that. I think it's like he and Giannis are going to be in this conversation for for quite a while. Like you're never going to hear that award mentioned without like those two names being like at least kind of associated.
Yeah, they're the top two guys in Vegas right now, and yeah, I think for very good reason. Luka just a walking triple double, like 30-point guy. Still hasn't even shot like league average from three yet. And granted, he takes these extremely difficult looks, but like his ability to launch up like 10 threes a game, his ability to just get to the basket pretty much at will, the kickouts for three, the ability to play with smaller guards that have these lineups that give other teams like headaches. He led the Mavericks to the best offensive rating in NBA history last year. I think they're still going to be a great offense, and they got a little better defensively. They draft a guy like Josh Green. They trade for Josh Richardson. So yeah, and then they still have like some of the other players that the complementary pieces like Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell. So all of them very valuable pieces as well. Dwight Powell didn't even get to play in the bubble, but he I think is going to be somebody that they need while Kristaps is out. They're still going to be a really good team. So yeah, I have them 5, and I think Luka Doncic is just continuing to his ascension towards being likely the top player in the NBA in the next few years or so.
Yeah, and to me, I think that's that X factor is him, is really Luka, just being at that level and bringing up those guys with him to be, to be a team that is always going to be, in the playoffs. But I think once he gets Kristaps back, I think that's just such a good dynamic between the two. I think that hopefully, Kristaps stays healthy long enough for a good playoff run. Probably not this year, but maybe in a couple, years when they have a little bit more depth and they can, bring along like a Tyler Bay, some other good like players to maybe complement, defensively. But yeah, I think Dallas is definitely a team to watch in the next few years for sure, just with Luka alone.
Yeah. One thing I want to add, my X factor is Boban Marjanovic, who we didn't even mention, a Viseland favorite. If you get a chance to watch YouTube videos of Bobby like going to the zoo or like doing pretty much anything in life, he is just so delightful, and I just feel like he is a human being that gives me hope in the world.
Oh, totally. The episode of players we want to hang out with the most, like he's definitely gonna be very highly ranked. Like
Bobby, yeah,
Bobby
is, yeah, he seems like it. I think he raises your team's level just by him being in your locker room, and not to mention that he usually is just a very efficient player on the court as well. Even with his limitations by being
because he is huge
a person.
So who is your 6?
My 6 seed, and I'm looking at them and I'm wondering, but I'll stick with it. It's the Utah Jazz. Who's your 6 seed?
So I had Golden State at 5.
Okay.
And then at Phoenix at 6. So and then Utah 7 with Portland rounding out.
Okay.
The traditional 8.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
It's so hard in the West. There's so many good teams that are like making cases. Because to me, it's hard to see Golden State like Steph Curry back. And I mean, I was watching him a little bit in the preseason here, but like he's cooking again. Like he is. And so it's hard to see him like,
but
being so out of position in the playoffs. Like obviously he doesn't have Clay anymore, but it's like he'll have Draymond. But unfortunately, the supporting cast is not the same.
They finished 15-67 last year. Granted, Steph Curry only played 5 games.
Yeah, that's
Draymond Green's not the same. And we're yet to see if he is like back to where he was one of the best players in the NBA. But he hasn't been the same for a little while. They don't have Klay Thompson.
Oh, for sure.
They don't have Kevin Durant.
Well, obviously that was.
Oh, you're replacing Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson with Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre. To me, that's a little bit concerning. So so you have them 5?
Yeah, because I just think again, like
I have lots of faith in Stephen Curry.
Steph alone, like I think I have a hard time to like not see him like out of decent position in the playoffs. Like I can't see them like struggling their way in. It just doesn't.
But what about the depth? Like, and that's the other thing. Like to me, the depth is very concerning.
Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think like I believe in what they've kind of built as a franchise. So I'm hoping they can get in there. But again, like obviously, definitely some factors.
The Blazers? Like what the hell, man?
I don't, like I get it's the Blazers. I always
Yeah.
I always
I
feel.
don't know if you. It's tough. Like I could be very wrong about Golden State. Like, and I have them 7. Like, it's not like I am like have them out of the playoffs or anything like that. I still feel like they're a playoff team. I just don't know if they're like a like 5-6. Like, yeah, I'm a little worried about that. But yeah, I see what you're saying there. Like, if Stephen Curry is at the level where we have come to expect him for the 5 years before last year, then I absolutely see what you're saying. I'm still not sure about having Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre as like the replacement wings, though.
Oh, yeah, nobody's Klay Thompson.
That's what I'm concerned about. You have a rookie in James Wiseman likely playing huge minutes there, and you're still not sure what you're getting out of the center position. And then you don't have that same depth that you used to have. That I think, like having the Andre Iguodala, you don't have that coming off the bench anymore. So that's my concern about Golden State being why I don't have them a little bit higher.
So your 6 then is
my 6 is Utah. Who's your 6?
So my 6, I have Phoenix because again, I think Chris Paul coming into. I mean, like the team finished so strong in the bubble, but again, even just at his core, getting Chris Paul with Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Keante Johnson, like they have some really nice pieces. And Chris Paul's in that similar category to me of like guys that like have a very difficult time, losing.
Yeah, and I have Phoenix 8. So yeah, I still see them in the playoff picture. I just still feel like Utah, like you realize how close Utah was to beating Denver, right? Like they were really close there. And then like I thought Donovan Mitchell played spectacular. Like we can talk about Jamal Murray, like, and how he did in the playoffs, and he was excellent. But like if you're going by that series, Donovan Mitchell was like the better player with that whole series taken into context. You still have Rudy Gobert, who is like, a defensive player of the year candidate any year that he's in the NBA, just with his ability to completely change how teams attack the basket. And then one thing I do agree with is I'm not sure about Utah's depth, but they have at least like 2 really good like bench options. Jordan Clarkson, who's just like that instant offense. And I like the signing of Derek Favors too. So yeah, I may be a little high on Utah, and I still wonder about their chemistry, which is why I don't have them like as high as they necessarily, I guess, looked like they were going to be last year. So yeah, I still have them in that same range. Mike Conley Jr. also being like still that really steady hand also. But yeah, I may be a little high on Utah, but I think they'll still be just around there. Yeah, but one thing I will say is like giving you crap about like the Warriors bench. Utah's bench isn't very
good. No, totally. It's not exactly like a lot of players who want.
Other than Clarkson and Favors, it gets a little sketchy. To me, like Joe Ingles is like their starting 4. Like, yeah, the starters I have for them are Conley, Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, and Rudy Gobert. Yeah, I don't love their bench. I could see them being lower also. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even want to say. I guess Derek Favors is kind of like the X factor for Utah. And yeah, just somebody who has played next to Rudy Gobert before, and then can definitely spell him for good periods of time and still put up solid production, and somebody that you're confident playing some minutes at big.
Yeah, it took only 1 year away from Utah, so definitely someone who's super familiar with the franchise. So who's your after Utah at 6? You have.
I have Golden State.
State at 7.
Yeah.
And then for that, yeah, like obviously we went over, bench is going to be an issue, but I think like Steph playing at Steph level, it's going to, elevate the other players as well. But I just have a hard time feeling like they're going to have like a lottery season if Steph plays all year and he's healthy.
Well, they're not. I don't think they're having a lottery season either. Like, I still have them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still feel like they're a playoff team. I just don't have them at. You had them at 5.
Goals at 5.
Yeah, so you have 5. I have them 7. Like, not a giant difference there.
Then who's your?
Yeah, my X factor for them. Let's hope Andrew Wiggins. First off, Andrew Wiggins looks a lot stronger this year. Like, certainly looked like he worked on his body. If he can shoot at all, like that's always been the key with Andrew Wiggins, is that if he provides some consistent long range or even like mid range shooting where he's been really bad there also, then I think that will be a big deal for them.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think if they can get just like Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre at like a serviceable level, I think that's good. But both of those guys, are definitely people that get questioned about, for a playoff run for that kind of thing. So yeah, like Wiggins a little bit of defense and some consistent shooting. Like that is huge key for him. Because again, this is the year he's going to get a chance. Like hypothetically, if Klay Thompson is there, like Wiggins would be on the court, but he's probably not getting the ball.
Yeah.
So this is a chance to kind of take advantage of that. And then who do you have as your 8?
My 8 is the Phoenix Suns. And I agree that Chris Paul is likely not going to miss the playoffs. I think Chris Paul and Devin Booker make up one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Mikhail Bridges, I thought, took a really nice step forward. Like the signing of Jay Crowder, they re-signed Dario Saric. Cam Johnson played some really nice minutes for them last year. Don't love their backup guards, but Javon Carter has looked like at least a solid defender and gives you some decent minutes there. Etuan Moore. And then I know like Cam Payne also played some really good minutes in the bubble. Jalen Smith, I think, is kind of like their backup big at this point, though I'm not exactly loving that, but I think he'll probably get some time. But yeah, like DeAndre Ayton, I think, is somebody that is also like having a 3, like, the 3 main guys being Paul, Booker, Ayton. It's going to be a really nice look for them, and I think they make that next step to reach the playoffs this year.
Yeah, for me, like I think like bringing in like Jay Crowder is just a good kind of, again, like solid contributing player.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a good role player, like to me. So I think like that can hopefully be an X factor. Having a veteran guy like that, who's been in the finals, been in some good games. They can just give a little bit of toughness to that team. But I think like I'm expecting big things from Devin Booker.
Yeah. But I think DeAndre Ayton is a guy that you're hoping to get the defensive flashes that you saw out of last year, and just hopefully not have the same situation where he missed time. You're just hoping to have that really solid center, like another guy who could eventually be like an all-star level center.
No, totally. Because again, there's a handful of true centers.
Yeah.
And then so who's your number 9?
My number 9 is the New Orleans Pelicans. And yeah, I think the play-in between Phoenix and New Orleans will be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that, and I think it will be a fight. I think Zion Williamson is going to have a tremendous second season and look fantastic as soon as he was able to play as a rookie. And I felt in many ways lived up to his billing. There's still some concerns about the rebounding and defense and conditioning and shooting. But even so, the guy was still so productive and so great around the basket and already looks like the strongest player in the NBA. It was really tough to stop, had some fantastic moments, just such a tough guy to stop around the basket. So, yeah, to me, the team's built around him. You had Brandon Ingram really taking that next step. You have possibly the second strongest guy in the NBA in Steven Adams now, a guy who's been on one of the best teams in the NBA the past few years, and Eric Bledsoe. You have JJ Redick back. Lonzo Ball was finally shooting last year up until the bubble. And you have like a lot of solid like wing guys there. You have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think showed some good things as a rookie. Josh Hart. Jackson Hayes is your backup big. So, yeah, there's a lot of athleticism there, some shooting. And then even you have a guy like Kyrie Lewis Jr. who provides some quickness and I thought was a nice draft pick. So, yeah, they have a lot of guys who can – a lot of different lineups to show. And I just feel like behind Zion, they're going to be solidly in playoff contention at the very least.
Just figuring out, what that franchise looks like, flowing through Zion as the go-to. To me, I would say, a good X factor is, you mentioned, like Eric Bledsoe. I think like sometimes he does have that like defensive ability as a guard to kind of complement, some of Alonzo's possible, flaws of not being necessarily the best defender in the league. So that's someone that, I think that was a good move.
Alonzo's a good defender.
I mean, I think he's adequate. I don't think he's like the top. And then I also, Steven Adams is always, again, on my list of players I'd like to hang out with. Steven Adams is always up there.
Yeah.
But I think again, he's just a big, strong center, but we'll see how they do it if they do end up going smaller at some points. Yeah. But if they do keep that traditional look, like definitely a good situation for Steven Adams.
Yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is, to me, my X factor. A guy who's just, I heard literally grew last year. It can provide some shooting, has some ball skills and some ambidexterity. He's somebody that I think they're going to at least rely upon a little bit more this year as a wing option. Number 10, I have the Memphis Grizzlies, who were the 9 seed last year.
So close to the playoffs last year. So close.
Yeah, the Blazers passed them in the bubble and then beat them in the playoff play-in game. So they would be in the play-in tournament in this scenario. And John Morant had a wonderful rookie year and won Rookie of the Year. He, I think, is going to also be – he just looks fantastic going into this year. Jaren Jackson Jr. was shooting at an absolute insane clip for a big man and has, defensive chops as well. But, yeah, his shooting was just absurd. And you're hoping to see more of that and to see him healthy. He had some issues with injury last year. You're hoping Justice Winslow is in the fold as well, but still no guarantees there. You have Kyle Anderson, a wonderful rookie year from Brandon Clark, who was all rookie first team and looked like one of the best players from that rookie class. Just a wonderful athlete who improved such a great deal as a shooter and is a great decision maker also, is like a big guy who could provide some versatility and play next to Jaren Jackson Jr. I have their starters as John Morant, Dylan Brooks, Justice Winslow if healthy, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Anderson I'm sure is going to get some starting time. DeAnthony Melton played quite a bit last year as a starter also. And Tyus Jones, just a really good backup. Desmond Bane is, I think, the rookie that's going to get the most playing time. Though Xavier Tillman Jr., I think, is also – or Xavier Tillman Sr., I should say, is going to get quite a bit of playing time as well as a rookie and just does so many little things like setting screens and making great passes out of the short roll and playing like ridiculous, like unable to back down post defense. So, yeah, they just have a lot of solid pieces. I just feel like some of the other teams in the Western Conference still a little bit better. But, man, they, like, completely, I felt, overachieved last year. And,
no, definitely solid.
They could prove me wrong.
Solid young core, like, to me, yeah, again, like, X Factor is, guys like Jaren Jackson Jr. that, like, are just playing at a good level for them if they can just, keep that all together. John Morant keeps on, getting a little bit more, consistent. Obviously less rookie mistakes. But yeah, I think they're definitely a team that's going to fight for that fringe of the playoff for sure.
And to me, it's Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark played so well last year, and if he gets better this year, then I think a really interesting lineup for them is having Jaren Jackson Jr. potentially at center, and then Brandon Clark at the 4, with a guy like Dylan Brooks with Desmond Bane, John Morant, or even John Morant and D'Anthony Melton, Dylan Brooks or Desmond Bane. They have a lot of really interesting combinations they can put together. 11, I have the Houston Rockets. If they have James Harden, it's so hard for me to see them missing the playoffs. But I don't know if you saw James Harden tonight, but he
did not. I know. Well, that's the thing. He did not look like James Harden, and also is he going to really be giving it his all? But he's so good at getting to the line. That's the biggest thing. He's so good
at scoring.
Yeah,
he's ridiculously good at scoring. He gets to the line because he's just so hard to stop.
Yeah. I think John Wall is decently healthy. I think they will push, but again, it just depends on what James Harden is willing to commit to and how it's going to look. Because again, this is not going to be that D'Antoni kind of system either. Most likely, they're probably going to make a decent transition away from that. So to see how the rest of the team,
playing with Boogie, playing with Christian Wood. So they have 2 legit big guys who have a nice, I guess, arsenal of offensive skills as well. But yeah, there are more the traditional bigs as opposed to the 5-out kind of system that they were playing last year with PJ Tucker or Robert Covington as the center. PJ Tucker, I think, still playing a nice role there. But yeah, I feel like they're eventually going to trade James Harden, which is why I have them here. And maybe why I have some of the other Eastern Conference teams a little bit higher.
Well, the other thing,
it's so hard to – I think those Eastern Conference teams are good even without James Harden, but if they have James Harden, could get to that next level since I feel like he is has been a guy who's been in the top 5 or so players the last few years. What he's able to do as an offensive player is absurd. I think you even saw him in the playoffs last year, and he looked fantastic. He's a guy that is just going to get you, I think, at a low, 28 to 34 points a night. And, just that consistent level of offense, that ability to create for himself, create for others. He just has figured it out. And it's just remarkable what he's been able to do these last few years as an offensive player. And then also playing good post defense. And yes, defense still not his calling card, but I just don't think it's as black and white as people make it with him.
He had one moment in the playoffs. I mean, he was
the
block.
That was as I said, the last guy. I know he had a good game. The last player you want to get the ball to was Lou Dort in that situation.
Oh, of course.
But yeah.
But it also be good to see, for me, X factors, again, DeMarcus Cousins, really has not played in a year and a half, 2 years. So if he can at least come back to a semblance of offensively of where he left off, I mean, I think that would be an interesting with he, Wall, and Harden. But obviously, again, I think Harden is probably on the way out.
Yeah, likely. And then Christian Wood is another guy who, just in limited minutes with the Pistons last year, was putting up insane numbers and just has been able to do that pretty much everywhere that he's gone. So if he brings that consistency, you would hope it would be to a situation where James Harden was actually set to play it out. But yeah, it just doesn't seem to be that way. But yeah, Christian Wood has always been a guy who's been really intriguing just based on his physical attributes and his talent. Let's move on to number 12, and I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They had the first pick in the draft, but I still think Karl Anthony Towns is just a fantastic offensive talent, and I still am hopeful for him as a defender. I just don't think he's a complete zero there. The other players you're just kind of wonder about, Josh Okogie's a good defender, but is he going to play a ton? D'Angelo Russell's always been a guy you worry about defensively. You draft Anthony Edwards, whose defense is not necessarily like a sure thing, especially when it comes to the NBA. He's more kind of potential based there. You do trade for Ricky Rubio. So, that's always been a guy. And say what you will about Ricky Rubio, he was definitely a part of the Suns and how well they did in the bubble, and has been a guy that seems to make teams better as a point guard. Malik Beasley, very small sample size, but looked really good in the games that he played. Re-signed Juancho Hernan-Gomez. I'm really not sure about like the forward situation for the Timberwolves and their wings, and Jarrett Culver didn't necessarily look like out of this world as a rookie, but he's a guy that I think in his second year, like you were talking about with him, it was always like work ethic and those things, and hopefully he'll work on that decision making. He'll be a bit more competent as a shooter. He's still somebody that I don't think people should be completely out on, and I have hope for in his second year with Minnesota.
And then who's your X Factor guy on them? Like,
just named it, Jarrett Culver.
Okay, yeah, it's such a hard roster for me to like get behind. Yeah, I just hope D'Angelo Russell can have a little bit more consistency, but I have a good feeling they will be back in a lottery position.
Yes, I agree with that. And 13, God, like I'll say, like the last few teams in the West are interesting teams, but yeah, I think San Antonio is firmly out of the playoff picture here. I still have them ahead of Sacramento, but I could go back and forth with either. I think 12 through 14 like is possible to fight, and there's a chance I'm just underrating Sacramento. But yeah, San Antonio still has at least like some really good guards. So DeJounte Murray, who I made an all-defensive team, I think, a few years ago. You had Derek White, who looked excellent in the bubble and has just been a really good player in his time with San Antonio. DeMar DeRozan still is a guy who can get 20 points in his sleep. LaMarcus Aldridge has taken to playing center and does that pretty well. But yeah, he might be playing, I think, more of the 4 next to Jakob Poeltl. Still like a solid team, but just, like I think unspectacular, and DeRozan and Aldridge's best days are behind them. Rudy Gay, certainly another player whose best days are behind them. They have some interesting young guys in like Lonnie Walker, Devin Vassell, the guy that they just drafted as rookie, who I thought was a good value pick at 11, and Keldon Johnson, who showed some good moments last year playing in the bubble also. So, yeah, they have some nice talent, but I think still they're kind of in the looking for a new star to build around kind of.
Yeah, I think they need to kind of rebuild the franchise a bit. I think for me, like, again, X factors are guys like DeJounte Murray, Derek White, like younger guys, to see like if those are going to be the guys that they can eventually build around. Because I think, again, LaMarcus and DeMar probably on their way out.
Yeah, I think you're hoping DeJounte Murray becomes a more viable shooting option. So that would be really huge for them. Derek White, I think, already shows quite a bit of potential there. But yeah, if DeJounte can provide a little bit more shooting, he's such a good defender. He, has the ability to do some things off of the bounce. It would be nice if he takes that next step this year. 14, I have the Sacramento Kings, who they seemed like they were barely out of the playoffs last year.
And they're kind of an intriguing team.
Yeah.
Like, they're not like a hapless team. They're just a team that doesn't have a lot of players that have done.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, you just still kind of wonder how they put it all together. They lose a guy like Bogdanovic, who was really nice for them last year. And I don't think they really replace him with anybody. Tyrese Halliburton looks like he's going to get some minutes for them and was a really nice fit. You're hoping for the health of Marvin Bagley III. You have like a solid center in Rashawn Holmes, but nothing spectacular. They signed Hassan Whiteside, who I'm sure will get some minutes there, but is nothing that like really, has you kind of shooting for the playoffs. And then once you're in the playoffs, then he probably doesn't get on the court very much. Buddy Hield has always been solid for them, but again, just not a guy that I'm very high on as being
does
like
not the
factor.
To me, I would say like an X factor to me is definitely like a Marvin Bagley, because again, if he turns a corner, that could go, because I love De'Aaron Fox. I think he's a good point guard to lead a team, but it's just some of those guys. So I think you get like Marvin Bagley, that would be huge if he can kind of make a a step upward, because they have Harrison Barnes as a veteran. They have a few guys, but it all kind of hinges on what Marvin Bagley can bring, because we know what everyone else is kind of at, but he's someone that's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I would say Marvin Bagley would be that guy. 15, Oklahoma City Thunder.
And they're just victims of circumstance, because they kind of just got ransacked.
But yeah, they're stacking draft picks. They're trying to rebuild, and I just think it's a good idea. It was fun while it lasted, and you had Chris Paul last year, and were able to make that really fun playoff run against Houston in the first round, losing in that 7th game. You draft a couple European players who have shown a little bit of promise in Alexei Pokusevski and Theo Maledon. You get a guy like Luguentz Dort at a great contract, and I think that he's a bargain.
He can be on the court. He just needs to offensively. His game is not there for a smaller kind of guard. To not be able to shoot, but defensively you can keep him out on the floor. To me, I would say the X factor is again Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This is going to be his time now. This is really his team. To do everything for. So it's they have all these draft picks, but what is it if you don't have anyone to build around it? So hopefully Shai becomes that.
Shai is at least a building block.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's the guy you build your team around, but I think he's one of the foundation pieces and is somebody who's really going to help out. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's the X factor guy for them, and he is somebody that they're going to rely upon very heavily this year, and will be one of their best players. I think he's going to be their best player. As much as you have a guy like Al Horford and George Hill, who have been.
Yeah, but again, I don't think they move the needle or anything. But yeah.
All right, so we went through every team. We're going to try and make this really quick, but let's give Eastern Conference finalists, Western Conference finalists, and our finals pick.
Copy.
All right. So Eastern Conference finals, who do you have?
Eastern Conference, I honestly think it is going to be a Bucks Miami, and I do see Miami coming back out.
I am going with the Bucks and the Nets, and I'm going with the Bucks to make the NBA Finals this year.
Nice. And then the West, I'm going back to the Battle of LA. I think it really is going to come to those teams, and again, I think the Lakers.
Oh, so you have Denver regular season, and then Clippers winning in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I also have a Battle of LA.
The Clippers are going to, sit Kawhi and stuff like that. So, regular season is not going to be as much of a factor.
Oh, I got you. So, yeah, I have Lakers Clippers, and I have Lakers winning. And then in the finals, I have the Lakers over the Bucks.
I have the Lakers going again as well. LeBron's got this window of, few great years left, and I'm guessing this is going to be one of them. He's just really playing at a super high level. But yeah, we're super, super excited for the upcoming season. So, these were our rankings, our picks. But if you guys have any, good ideas or any teams
we're going to awards.
Oh. We are?
Yeah. We're going quickly awards, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay? I went over this with you. But yeah, MVP.
I think LeBron is going to play enough games to win MVP.
I am going with Giannis for a 3-peat. And then my second place is Luka Doncic, and my third place is LeBron James.
I got LeBron, Luka, Giannis. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm going with Bam Adebayo.
I am going with Anthony Davis. I like the Adebayo choice. Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year, I am going with LaMelo. I feel like he's going to get a chance to get a lot of burn, put up some stats, and again, I don't think it's like most exciting rookie class of all time. So again, the opportunities are there.
I am going with LaMelo as well, and I know he's coming off the bench, but yeah, I just think he's going to put up tons of stats, and then he's really going to figure it out and just be very exciting. It's all about numbers, and yeah, I just think he's going to have enough that he puts up and is going to be one of the better early contributors. Sixth man of the year, who do you have?
I think Montrezl Harrell's going to do it again in LA because I think he's just going to keep bringing that dynamic of that kind of energy big.
Yeah, I've heard different things about whether he's still going to be with the team, but I'm going with Lou Will. And I just think they're going to need a good contribution from him off the bench. And he's going to be that main guy once again. Most improved player, who do you have?
I'm going with I think Gary Trent Jr., honestly. I think if he plays a consistent season for the Blazers, I think he could, become a rotation guy somewhere. Probably maybe not with the Blazers, but
you think he gets enough minutes?
Yeah, I think he's earned that, I think, based on last year. So hopefully he does. I mean, the other most improved player is such a hard
signings though. Yeah.
Kind of pinpoint anyway.
Yeah. I just feel with the new signings, it might be tough. But yeah, I certainly a guy who I think is going to be in the running. I have Michael Porter Jr. I just think he's going to play enough minutes. I think he's going to have that kind of improvement just in terms of his role. So he probably his per minute numbers won't be anything that changed a great deal. But yeah, I just think he's going to be a little bit better and get that greater role this year. All NBA first team, who do you have?
All NBA first team, I have got LeBron, Luka, Giannis, AD, and Durant.
LeBron, Luka, Giannis, AD, and Durant. Okay. You have LeBron as a guard, I guess?
Yeah, I guess I kind of just did them all as kind of a top 5.
Okay. Well, I wish the NBA did it the way that you did it. But I have Luka, James Harden, LeBron James, Giannis, and Anthony Davis, which was the same 5 as last year. My second team is Damian Lillard, Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Nikola Jokic. Who do you have?
Yeah, I had Steph, Dame, Kawhi, Jokic, and I'm thinking Jason Tatum can get himself there.
Okay. You leave off Damian Lillard.
No, I said Dame. I said Steph, Dame.
Steph, Dame.
Kawhi, Jokic, and Tatum.
Oh, because you had Durant on the first team.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. And then all NBA third team, I have Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson, Joel Embiid. Who is the Jason Visenberg All NBA third team?
I actually have the same.
Really?
Yeah. I think Devin Booker is there. I think Zion is going to get himself up there as well.
Did you just leave James Harden off all your teams?
I just because I don't know what you're going to get this year out of him. That's why I'm just a little
really
skeptical. Yeah, I don't know if he's. I think offensively he's going to be there, but if he's offensively and the team's terrible, I mean, I don't think that necessarily gets you on the All-NBA team.
Yeah, I just think he's going to get traded to a contender because he's that good.
Well,
yeah,
we will see. Yeah,
for sure. And then all rookie team.
All rookie team, I have got LaMelo, Deni Avdija, Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards.
All right. I went with LaMelo, Killian Hayes, Anthony Edwards, Isaac Okoro, Obi Toppin.
Yeah, I think there's going to be definitely some good chances for rookies to get some time because there are some pretty relatively dreadful teams out there.
And it was tough for me to leave off James Wiseman. Deni, I'm not sure exactly how much time he's getting. I know he started initially with the Wizards, but Yeah, I'm just not exactly sure how that rotation is going to work out. But those guys, I think, both have chances to make the all-rookie second team. But yeah, that's what we went with. We just wanted to give an idea of some of our predictions for the upcoming NBA season.
Yeah, so definitely let us know in the comments if you have anybody you're feeling or any good storylines or any players you're excited about. And we definitely look forward to bringing a lot more, obviously, as the season kicks off next week. So definitely stay tuned. We're going to have new episodes next Wednesday. So hope to see you guys there. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at Viseland. Individually, I am at Jay Visenberg. Individually, he's at NBA Draft Mikey V. And you can always send us an email at viselandpod@gmail.com. We're happy to interact and respond and keep a good dialogue going. So thank you guys so much for supporting the show.
Yeah. And just one last thing. Please like, subscribe, share, send it to your friends. We really appreciate the support for anybody that's listened to Viseland. Happy birthday, Mikhail. Want to give that last little shout out and to one of the big fans of Viseland. But yeah, just happy Hanukkah to everybody and happy holiday season and happy NBA season coming up a week from today on December 22nd.
Perfect. See you guys next week.